And we're live, Hightower. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sort of alive. Jim Hightower here with the Hightower Low Down Happy Hour. Low down. And we are low down toward the election coming up just exactly 1 week from tonight. So, of course, we're going to talk about Trump. No, we're not going to talk about Trump. He's been talked to death, and he's talking us to death. Rather, we're going to go down ballot to where the change is really happening. This is your chance to vote for somebody. A lot of people say, well, Biden, Trump, I don't, there's the old Peggy Lee song. Is that all there is? Well, no, that's not all there is. There are people all up and down the ballot that are true progressives, building a future that you and I want to be a part of, about economic justice and fairness and equal opportunity for all people. So we're going to talk to three of these live candidates tonight on our little visit on the happy hour here. America's grassroots movement is making the election of innocence more possible than ever. And by innocence, I refer to a guy named Ken Hubbard, who about 100 and something years ago was a humorist, a precursor of some of the great humorists in our society, cartoonists and et cetera. Anyway, he once said that every now and then an innocent man gets sent to the legislature. And we're getting more and more innocent men and women sent to the legislature by the progressive movement that is doing the organizing at a grassroots level to elect genuine people's candidates to high office. I wrote a book some years ago that the title of which was "If the Gods Had Meant Us to Vote, They Would Have Given Us Candidates." In fact, the gods don't give us candidates. We have to create our own. And we've got three of these with us tonight. These are folks who are coming from not from the usual kind of backgrounds of lawyers and lobbyists, but coming from strong backgrounds of progressive activism. And we're going to kick off here tonight with one from We're going to have two Texans and a Badger tonight. So that's your lineup. So be ready. Two Texans and a Badger. We're going to lead out with one Texan, a guy who's been out there scrambling for ordinary people his entire professional career, and that would be Mike Siegel, who is running in a district. And I'm just going to show you a map of this district. This is what has happened in Texas, in North Carolina, in state after state, the Republican gerrymandering of our politics so that they can get elected with a minority of their votes and exclude the rest of us. This is a map, and Deanna's going to put it up on the big screen for us too. But here is Mike Siegel's district, and it runs from Houston, the third or fourth largest city in America now, massive Houston suburbs there, and goes up here for 160 miles, and then boop, here's this little squiggle, and that little squiggle is Austin, Texas, and that is where this candidate lives, but he represents the corporate interests from down in Houston, particularly the petrochemical industry from which his money derives. So we've got Mike Siegel with us. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for having me and for laying the foundation for progressives, tilling the soil for us and supporting me. I mean, it was not so long ago, maybe 18 months ago, that you and I were out in Bastrop County kicking this campaign off, launching this 9-county campaign to replace Michael McCall. And here we are, 7 days to go. The polls show we're tied. The early returns are even more positive. I think they're trending my way. We have massive turnout in this district. We've built an unstoppable coalition, and we're running on unapologetic progressive values. Universal health care, a Green New Deal, racial justice, ending the war on drugs, and on down the line. So thank you for creating space for the next generation or two to actually win some seats running on these kind of progressive populist values that you've championed for so long.
Well, thank you for taking on the power elites, the moneyed elites. Let's be clear about this. And Michael McCall, the incumbent, who's I think he's in his 9th or 10th term in the Congress. He got there with money. He got his money the old-fashioned way. He married it. His wife is the daughter of the founder of Clear Channel radio media empire. He's ostensibly the richest person in the Congress of the United States, and that is who he serves. But it's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to take it on. What have you found? This is a district that was carved out for him specifically years ago in a gerrymandering effort. It is a district that is really controlled by Houston's suburbs, but is rural primarily, and then dips into a little touch of Austin and progressive communities. But what is it like out there? I mean, why would you even think that you could take on both this moneyed establishment and the supposed rural conservative establishment?
Well, I ran the first time in 2018 when this was considered to be, like you say, a safe Republican seat. McCall, with his hundreds of millions of dollars with a gerrymandered map, he was considered to be unbeatable. He actually won by 19% as recently as 2016. For me, I was inspired to run. Well, first of all, Donald Trump takes office. Michael McCall is co-authoring the Muslim ban, demonizing our Muslim community. Then he's presiding over the family separation policy as chairman of Homeland Security, not lifting a finger to stop it. Then he's voting 46 times to cut our health care and our protections for pre-existing conditions. And I live in North Austin. We're about 40% of the votes in this district, but we don't feel represented. We've been gerrymandered out of real representation. And I figured, well, this guy doesn't deserve to be in office. And maybe the powers that be don't deem this to be a winnable race for a Democrat, but it's at least worth challenging him and trying to motivate a grassroots coalition to see what's really possible. And what we did in 2018, without a lot of outside support, but thousands of volunteers, we turned this from a safe Republican seat into a national battleground, running unapologetically on progressive values, universal health care, strong action on climate change, and the rest. And now when I came again to run again for 2020, excuse me, I have a cough. I'll assure you, I've been tested for COVID. I'm okay.
I had my mask on, so don't worry.
Unlike so many of my fellow Texans, I can get health care, but my body is a little weak after 3+ years of campaigning, but my spirit is strong because overcoming, that first race with all the doubts, then winning a primary where $3.5 million was spent against me from more moderate Democrats. And now basically taking this race to the brink with 7 days to go, where basically we just need to keep getting out the vote and we win. I'm so heartened. And to me, if Kriss and Julie and me and the others, these Democrats win across the country, we're just giving courage to the next wave of progressives that you don't just have to be a moderate Democrat to win in a Republican seat. I mean, sure, I've got love for my fellow moderate Democrats, but progressives can win too. And I think we need to own that we're the ones with the answers to the crises we're facing. We're in a health pandemic. We're fighting for Medicare for all, so every single person can get a COVID test, can get treatment, isn't going to go into bankruptcy if they get sick through no fault of their own. We're fighting for a Green New Deal to create millions of good new jobs and confront climate change and the legacy of environmental racism and injustice. We believe we need to end the war on drugs. We need to end voter suppression. We need to fight to protect our democracy. And so to me, as progressives, we can actually build the massive coalitions that are needed to win races like mine, because McCall might have the money, but he can't buy people, right? And it's only
he's got the fat cats, but we've got the alley cats.
That's right.
And those alley cats out there are hard hit these days, even in these rural areas, even in these supposedly red areas. And I'll be a little more rude than you are. You say moderate Democrats. I say corporate Democrats. Too many of them have sold out to the big money, and that's why we need genuine Democrats, little d, by God, unabashed, unapologetic Democrats who are willing to stand up and actually mean it and stand out there and do something about it. All right. So let me ask you one final question here, Mike. What do you're running for this office? Okay. Then you get elected to this office. What do you want to do?
I want to build a movement for social justice and equality in this country. I want to deliver in that first 100 days, not just some moderate reforms, but we need to bring jobs home to Texas. I mean, the Republicans, for all their love of big oil, they haven't lifted a finger for these 50,000 oil and gas workers who have lost their jobs since March. Think about all the entertainment workers, the hospitality workers, the aviation workers. I mean, there's so many people in this district alone across the state who are suffering, and we need to deliver for them. So to me, we got to bring jobs home. We got to expand healthcare as far as Joe Biden and the Senate will allow us to expand it. And we got to keep winning. We have to deliver for the people. We can't spend 2 years crafting one perfect policy, hoping the Republicans buy in, and then they vote against it at the end. I think every month, every 2 months, we got to get a big victory for the people. And to me, that's what I'm excited to do, whether it's on climate change, healthcare, jobs, racial justice, and the rest, is to go out there fighting, swinging, bringing the people into the halls of Congress, organizing in the streets, organizing my fellow members, and getting things done for Texas.
Well, that's a big thing you just said right there, which is bring the people inside the halls of Congress. Because as I've, I don't come to you as a virgin. I've been involved in Texas politics, and much to the amusement of the people, got elected a couple of times statewide here. And I can tell you that that you don't win inside. That's where the money wins. That's where the lobbyists are. You win by bringing the outside inside. And that, to me, is the importance of what you are doing, not just as a candidate, but as a person of values and principle. Tell us how folks can stay connected with you. We're putting it up on the screen and et cetera, but we want to hear it right out of your mouth.
Well, if you can spell my name right, and there's a few signs behind me. Siegel, Siegel. You can find me online, siegelfortexas.org. I mean, really, we need troops. We want to call every single voter left to be called. We want to call them 3 times between now and Election Day. Because if we get everybody out, if we get the young people, the Black folks, the Latinx community, the East Asian, the South Asian community, if everybody votes, I win, and other Democrats down ballot for me, we can win these county commissioner races that are on the ballot. Now, we can make so much good happen. So if folks would sign up for a shift or two, give us 2, 4, 6 hours of your time, get out the vote. And then if for some reason you don't want to talk to voters, yes, I can use your money. I can keep my ads going. I can keep my field team going. So we also accept donations. But really, anything you can do, if everyone puts their shoulder to the wheel, we're going to win this race.
There's a little piece of Texas right here. District 10 in the state of Texas, a gerrymandered district that they thought was going to shut out any kind of progressive reform by electing a right-wing Republican. And in fact, here's a guy who's gone out into that red territory and generated an actual grassroots campaign that can do it. And if he does it, then we win. Thank you, Mike Siegel. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate everything you do. Take care, sir.
All right, on down the road, up the road, in fact, from the state of Texas, we're going to Badger country. Yes, that would be the state of Wisconsin. And we have a champion right here with us who is running for state representative, because all races are not in Washington. All policy changes, all reforms, in fact, the best reforms come out of the very grassroots, the most grassroots levels that we can have, and that means state legislative races, state senate races, all sorts of state offices, but also even more local offices than that. And we've got Kriss Marion with us. Kriss is a farmer. She is a champion. She is a champion baker. She is a sometime drummer in various rock bands and etc. Kriss is a phenomena in the little town out there in southwestern Wisconsin. She does not come from a big city. She represents represents literally, because she is currently a Lafayette County supervisor down at a county level making policies, and we need and she's interested in being able to be a force in the state legislature.
Hey, Hightower, hang on I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're having a little bit of a technical problem with Kriss's audio because of me, Deanna, the illustrious tech person who knows what she's doing. Just going to take 1 second.
Okay.
You can keep talking about Kriss, and Kriss, I'm going to remove you and then add you back in.
All right, Kriss is nodding, so that seems to be a positive sign. There's some communication taking place, but this is indicative of the kind of races that are across the right wing, led by Karl Rove and the Koch brothers, made a move, particularly around as soon as Barack Obama was elected president. They said, we've got to go get these state legislatures. And they poured tons of money in. While the Democrats were focused on Washington, they poured money in to state legislative races, and they swept them.
And Kriss is back.
I forget what the number is. It's something like 30-something state legislatures that they took over in the country. But since then, people like Marion had been standing up to run for state legislature, and we've been clawing those seats back. Clawing them back not by being by spending more money than the Republicans do, not by trying to be more corporate than the Republicans are, but by putting people forward who are actually for the people. And Marion is one of those. Kriss, thanks for being with us.
So great to be with you all. I'm really honored that you recognize this little state race in your fabulous magazine and that you invited me here. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you because you call yourself a dirt road Democrat. What is that?
So Democrats, urban Democrats, are a little different from rural Democrats. I think we all need to join behind workers. I think that's the biggest thing that unites us is that we stand for working people. But a lot of people really feel like Democrats just don't understand them and just don't understand their life. So there's a few awesome candidates that I follow, like J.D. Scholten, who started this Dirt Road Democrat hashtag. It's caught on.
In Iowa.
He's in Iowa, that's right. And in Wisconsin, I spend a lot of time with COVID. I'm not knocking on doors, but I am still driving around. I go to every farmer's market in my district. I try and get out and see people where it's safe and where it's out in the open. And we have just beautiful views wherever we go. So it's nice to be able to highlight my beautiful district, talk about how much we have to protect. And a lot of that is our dirt road ethic. We work hard, we play hard, and we really appreciate the beauty that is all around us.
Well, and the beauty is in the people too, because you're in a district that the national pundits call Trump country. It's red country. How can you reach people out there? How can you dare to talk to these people? Aren't they antagonistic toward you?
Well, it depends.
Yeah,
no,
right.
In some ways we're in Wisconsin. We are Wisconsin nice.
Yes.
I think that most candidates running out here find that if they can get with people and talk, we can all find common ground. And I'm good at that. That's what I pride myself on. You mentioned that I came from a grassroots background. I've been organizing around clean water for about 6 years. And when I came out as a Democrat, a lot of people were surprised because I really didn't talk about parties. I just sat with people from both sides and talked about our shared values and our shared water. And so putting a D behind my name did alienate a lot of people. It alienated a lot of people on my county board. I will say, though, we flipped 7 seats on my county board of 16 in April. I worked really hard to recruit.
All right. Way to go.
We now have 7 women on a rural county board of 16.
All right.
And I am the first. It's pretty amazing. I'm the first woman ever elected by my peers to serve on the officers committee of the county board. I'm the second vice chair. So that's a big deal. Yeah. So the needle is moving, and it's moving by relationships. Some of those folks that I helped elect and then I donated to are Republicans, and they're endorsing my opponent because that's the way we roll, right? No permanent enemies, no permanent allies. We just need to acknowledge that we're family, and sometimes Thanksgiving is a little awkward, and we just need pressing through and pressing on, and really just keeping the lines of communication open. So I'm kind of running on that. Let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk and let's try to get something done.
Exactly.
Which has been, of course, you're a farmer, and the old farmer saying, "Make it do without blah blah blah." I forget the line now, but
you can fix anything with baling twine.
That's it. You can basically fix it, and that attitude is that we actually get together around principles of economic fairness, social justice, equal opportunity for all. We might all agree on a strong little d progressive program for America. And you mentioned water, that you've been active in water. You're not just active; you were named Whistleblower of the Year this very year for your work on contaminated groundwater. And I was a longtime pal of Ed Garvey, a great fighting populist in Wisconsin, who was a champion of water, battling the water giants who were polluting and were stealing the water of rural people out there. So I know a little bit about it. And I'll just, it's a little sidebar here, but Kriss, but yesterday, NASA announced a big discovery, which is on the moon. They found some water that's on the moon.
We can extract some more.
Exactly. We can go get it.
Extraction.
and we can pollute. We can build pipelines. We can, etc. I mean, sometimes I just wish, scientists would find something and then say, shh, and step back ever so quietly and quickly, and not just contaminate everything in our society. But that is not the world we live in. We live in a world in which extraction and plunder is an economic reality. So we've got to have people who are willing to take this on, and as opposed to not only Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, but too many Democrats who just go along with the what just happened, Deanna?
I'm sorry, I got very excited for Kriss's beer.
Oh yes, well of course it is happy hour. And I'm here with the Oktoberfest, it being October, and we're about to have a huge political fest coming next Tuesday. But you've got a beer that actually does symbolize not only an attitude, but also a small business possibility. Tell me a little bit about that beer.
Yeah, so this beer, I won't say it out loud because I don't know what y'all's rules are, but I think you can read the thing. Well, I can't say it because it'll be on the next political ad against me.
Right.
But hey, I want to shout out to this awesome brewery in Madison, Wisconsin. It's Ale Asylum. Let's see. There we go. I'm wearing a shirt. Ale Asylum is in a tussle with the Tavern League, who in Wisconsin, while we're in the midst of surging COVID numbers, is suing our governor. Our governor, I don't know if you know what's been happening in Wisconsin, but our governor has been leading the charge alone with the health department fighting COVID because the legislature has not been in session for almost 200 days. And they won't come because the leaders of the legislature are two Republicans who don't want to make the hard choices, don't want to take the hard votes. And because mask wearing and the very fact that COVID exists is a bit controversial for some in their base, they won't come to the table. And they won't work on anything with the governor. So every time he puts in a mask mandate or a capacity limit for bars and restaurants, they sue him in court because our Supreme Court is also majority Republican. So right now, the Tavern League is suing the governor, and Ale Asylum decided to pull out of the Tavern League, make a big stink about it, say the Tavern League does not represent the opinions of all tavern owners. They have a tavern in addition to the brewery, because we know that tavern owners and small business owners, they're not a monolith, but a lot of these folks actually need to have capacity limits passed. If a lockdown isn't passed, they can't get unemployment for their employees, and they cannot keep their people safe if people don't obey mask limits and capacity limits. So there are a lot of small business owners and taverns crying out for a unified COVID response. And right now in Wisconsin, we don't have it. And today we had 64 people die, I believe, in this state. And we had 5,262 positives just in the last 24 hours. So things are exploding here, especially rurally. which is really heartbreaking because we kind of thought we were immune. A lot of people didn't really believe we should be subjected to any kind of mask mandates or capacity limits. And I think now we see that this legislature should have been pulling together, just like we were talking about how can we help business and how can we stand up for health. We can do both. It's just a matter of hammering out some policy that does that. We can have capacity limits and we can support bars and restaurants with cash payments to get them through if we want them to be here on the other side of this.
That's what we got to do. And I wish some of these head in the sand politicians, mostly Republican, but not all, mostly Republican, in Washington, in Madison, would have to go to some of these funerals and see the price that people are paying for their head in the sand policies. And an important thing of what you just said, I think, is relating. I'm a big believer in the tavern culture, not only because I like beer, but also because that's where policy has come. America was founded in taverns.
Absolutely.
In Pennsylvania, in Virginia, and all of the colonies back then. America was founded in those taverns. It didn't happen in Constitutional Hall and austere places like that. It took place in the nitty gritty of taverns, and that is a place where business and workers and just commoners come together. The tavern is one of the last places where you can actually have a conversation with a stranger. If you go into a restaurant, you can't just go sit at their table. They say, well, excuse me. But if you're sitting next to them in a bar, you can actually have a talk, and you might find out that you do have something in common. You might build something strong down the road. Speaking of building something strong, I want to get to one point that you have, and that is that you were among, I think it's 3 women who founded the Soil Sisters in Wisconsin. I guess it's even bigger than Wisconsin now. Tell us, what are the Soil Sisters?
So the Soil Sisters are a group of now about 250 women farmers that are kind of southern Wisconsin into Illinois. We've got lots of people from a lot of places. We host a tour in August every year at our farms where we teach people how to do what we're doing, and we share our spreadsheets and we encourage people to farm in innovative ways. Most of us are first generation farmers, though not all. I'm a first generation farmer, and I have a really niche operation. I grew organic vegetables for a decade through CSA, sold veggies in boxes, subscription. And then I slowly transitioned into farm to table dinners. And now I do bed and breakfast. It makes the most money for me. Like I said, I'm in a beautiful place, and all my organic veggies and all my meat, we raise hogs and steers and sheep and chickens for layers. We feed that to our guests. And so I'm in the business of promoting this region. And I know that more B&Bs, more farmers just like me, more interesting farm to table operations, more interesting foods being grown, all of that is good for our economy. It's good for each of our individual businesses because we are lifting each other's boats because we're creating buzz around this region. And we are committed to collaboration, committed to having profitable farm businesses, because farmers don't want to just be subsidized till they die. Right. They want to have an opportunity to make money. And the problem right now is every incentive is geared to get big or get out in Wisconsin. It's even hard to get a loan if you want to get in on a small scale. Even though we know we don't have anywhere to go with our milk, we'll keep giving out loans and subsidizing people to get bigger. So that's the heartbreak of what's going on in Wisconsin. We have the highest farm bankruptcy rate in the nation. For the 4th year running, we lost 800 dairy farms last year, and we're in a cataclysmic transition. The Soil Sisters are women farmers doing unusual things who want to get more people on the land, and once they get there, we want to keep them there. So one of the things we did was sue the state because we couldn't get a good cookie bill through the legislature. By cookie bill, I mean a bill that would allow us to bake at home and sell cookies face to face at the end of the road, or from our kitchens, or at farmers markets. All of that.
So wait. You're not allowed. You could bake cookies in your own oven, and go to a farmer's market with flour and ingredients that you grew yourself and go to a farmer's market, but you were not allowed to sell the cookies.
Exactly. So I'm a certified bed and breakfast. The state comes in and inspects me so that my kitchen is safe to cook people whatever I want. I can cook whatever I want, steak, fish,
Mm-hmm.
for breakfast. But I couldn't sell cookies at my farmer's market, when I was done with breakfast. So we thought that was crazy. A lot of people didn't even know that it was true, but we did the community organizing to show people that, in fact, it was not just illegal, but it was a law. It was illegal because the state wanted to protect the big guys from encroachment by these little tiny home bakers and their small operations. So we didn't like that. We worked with the legislature for 2 sessions, couldn't get it through because the Speaker of the House, Robin Voss, literally would not. It went through the committee process 2 sessions in a row, unanimously voted thumbs up in the Senate, and then this assembly leader wouldn't put it on the agenda.
Leader, isn't that an interesting term?
Exactly. Interestingly, his wife runs a lobbying group called Jobs First that is putting up most of the terribly negative, assaultive ads up against us. So we're not friends. But of course, I'll work with him when I'm in his assembly.
Yes.
And it's his for now, but we're trying to change that. So we won in court. We actually worked with a nonprofit libertarian law firm. So I talk about being a bipartisan, nonpartisan, let's get it done however we need it to get it done candidate. And I mean it. I work with libertarians. I'll work with whoever wants to get this stuff across the finish line for my communities. And so now we're baking. We can bake cookies.
We're baking. Right. I love it.
Cooking with gas now.
Yeah. Baking leadership at a grassroots level. That is exactly what America is all about in concept, but has to become in reality. And to make that a reality, we've got to have people like Kriss Marion taking the leadership in our country. And there are people like her wherever you are in America. There are people like her running for legislative offices today, and running for even more local offices than that. And this is how we build from the grassroots. You don't build a movement from the top down. You build it from the grassroots. And you don't get more grassroots than Kriss Marion. Kriss, thanks so much for being with us. It's been a joy to visit with you. Take care. All righty, now we're going to come back to Texas because I'm a Texan. And I get to choose who's on the show tonight. And because Texas is not just a bywater anymore in the national political campaign, national politics and economy, it is a force in progressive politics. And that has been building over the last 2, 4, 6, 10 years. And it's not that long ago, back in the 1980s and 90s, that we had a strong progressive movement in our state. But too many of our Democratic Party leaders decided that they could get the corporate money and compete with the Republicans. And I can tell you from experience that if you take that corporate check, you get the corporate agenda written on the back of it. And that's what happened to politics in Texas. It's not that Texas turned right wing, not that it turned Republican. It turned to a non-voting state. If we didn't have little d Democratic people putting forth candidacies for progressive grassroots change, then why were people going to vote for them? And they didn't. They didn't vote at all. And that has begun to change. And it's begun to change because of people like Julie Oliver. I showed you the map just a while ago of Mike Siegel's district, running from the bulk of the population down in Houston and up and doing a little squiggle and taking in a little bit of Austin. Here's the map that Julie Oliver faces. This is the congressional district now represented by the ninth richest man in the House of Representatives, a non-entity named Roger Williams. He doesn't do anything for the people, anything to be noted. He's basically serving himself and serving the corporate interests. He's from way up here in the Fort Worth suburbs, and this district runs south of Austin. It's almost 200 miles along. And here's them again, that little squiggle. Look at that little squiggle coming in there. What is that? That taps into Austin. And that is part of the gerrymandering that took place under the former Speaker Tom DeLay, Majority Leader Tom DeLay, who gerrymandered the gerrymandered legislature from 2001 to create these nightmarish Frankenstein sort of districts. And they assumed that would elect right-wingers like Roger Williams forever. But along comes somebody who is got a remarkable story. Somebody who was a teenage runaway, 17 years of age, pregnant early, baby, dropped out of high school, managed to scramble back and get a high school degree with her baby in tow, managed to go to college and get through college, and then even get a law degree and become a financial director for hospitals and healthcare. A woman who understands what it is to be a regular American in this country, and what it means to be without health care, what it means to have a son who has health problems, pre-existing health problems, and can't get coverage. That is what drove Julie Oliver to run for Congress against this millionaire in this district in the state of Texas. Julie, thanks so much for being with us this evening, and thanks so much for running for Congress.
Thank you for having me. Oh my gosh, what a pleasure. I keep saying, like, don't poke a mama bear. You poke a mama bear, she's gonna come after you, and she's gonna come after you with everything you got. And that's exactly what Roger Williams did. I mean, Roger Williams wasn't alone. He was, there with Lamar Smith and Mike McCall when they were voting to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And I get it's far from a perfect piece of legislation. It's all we got right now. We can do so much better. But it does protect folks who have pre-existing conditions from that discrimination. But yeah, they poked the mama bear, they woke her up, and she came out with a vengeance. So
now you've been because of this background that you had growing up in a relatively poor family and going through all those early experiences that you had, you've been called a bootstrap success story. But you have a different view of that bootstrap.
Yeah, I did not pull myself up by my bootstraps. There were no bootstraps to pull on. It was a community that helped me. And honest God, it was the people who were paying their taxes in the early 90s who helped me. That's really where a lot of credit needs to go to my mom. She did take me back in after I came back home as a high school runaway. But truly, the social safety net of 1990, I was a Medicaid mom. Delivered my daughter at Parkland Hospital in Dallas. My Medicaid benefits actually cut off, because this is what we do to Medicaid moms. They shut off 60 days after you give birth. So we wonder why we have a high maternal mortality rate in Texas. Well, if you come into a pregnancy with complications or chronic illness, pregnancy completely exacerbates those. And then to shut your healthcare coverage off 60 days after giving birth is setting us up for failure. Well, my birthday coincided with that 60-day mark, and on my 18th birthday, I no longer had health care, and we were uninsured for many, many years. So, yeah, I'm grateful that the programs of the early 90s were far more beneficial. Medicaid might not have been, but at least college programs were very, very, generous. They're just generous, far more generous. Can you imagine today having no college plan, because there's no college plan in your family, never writing a check to college, and never coming out of college with any debt. That happened for me because in the early 90s, we looked at college as an investment in young people's lives. And we said people can come out of college and immediately meaningfully contribute to their communities, contribute to the economy, if we don't saddle them with debt. So it is possible. It happened, I'm living proof of that.
Well, and not only low-income folks like where you came out of, but just regular working class people like my family that I grew up in North Texas, Denison on the Oklahoma border, going to school at the University of North Texas, a state school, paying $750 in tuition a year, and being able to get a quality education out of that, and have people to help you move along, to have public school teachers like I had, and so many of our viewers and listeners and pals all across this country had this force of the common good that was embodied in ordinary people who taught you, advanced you, helped you get along. None of us make it on our own, and that's the absurdity of the philosophy of greedheads, and I'm going to say what it is: greedheads like Roger Williams and like Mike McCall, who are super rich. Roger Williams, yes, he's a rich man. Yes, he's got a car dealership, but he inherited that from his daddy. He didn't build a car dealership on his own. And so we've got to give regular people a chance again. And that seems to me, Julie, maybe what inspired your politics, but and you're daring to step into one of these difficult, sometimes ugly races like you're facing.
Well, it is, when I stepped into this, I really did think that if I explain how healthcare in Texas is financed, because y'all, we finance healthcare in Texas in just the worst of ways. Property taxes pay for folks who don't have insurance when they end up in the emergency room. And I've had people argue with me, no, our property taxes do not pay for healthcare. Yes, they do. State statute requires every county in Texas to pay for some level of what they call, defined in the statute, indigent healthcare. That typically means people who fall below a certain income and don't have insurance. So we do pay our property taxes to folks in emergency rooms. When we know preventive care, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's so much more, financially responsible to pay for the front end preventive care than to allow somebody who's really sick to end up in the ER. We give $100 billion away of Texas income tax money to other states that expanded Medicaid. And then for those of us who might be lucky enough to have insurance that a job provides, it could be gone in the blink of an eye due to a pandemic. That is not any person who worked at a company's fault. It's due to the ineptitude of our president and Governor Abbott. So, and then there go your insurance benefits. So we can do it a much better way. I do advocate for Medicare for all because it's a great equalizer and everybody will have it.
Well, some would say, probably Roger Williams would say, well, Julie Oliver, who is she? She's nothing. She's this little lady out there who has no business experience. She has no business to be in the Congress of the United States. You need people of expertise and financial ability like myself to be in the Congress. What do you say to that, Julie?
Well, I would say that prior to running for Congress, I was responsible for putting together a $1 billion annual budget for the hospital facilities. And that is all I did. Financial, healthcare finance. It is a level of expertise, so to speak, to be able to talk to how we finance things, how it actually operates in the real world. I remind people that even one of our hospitals was a hospital that had over 70% Medicare population, Medicare. So I think it was about 74%, 75% Medicare population. One of the highest profit margin hospitals in all of the United States. So, this whole notion that, oh my gosh, Medicare, it'll never work. It will never work because, hospitals won't be able to thrive. Doctors won't. Like, my gosh, the second largest physician practice group in America wants Medicare for all. And it's definitely not true. Being on the finance side for 15 years, I can tell you that hospital made money through a Medicare patient base. I've talked to hospital executives in rural Texas, said if we had a Medicare-only patient base, our hospitals would thrive. We would not be at risk of closing. But you can't have a Medicare patient base and a large uninsured patient base because the margins are too thin. Medicare patients can't cover the uninsured. And again, we're talking about a higher level of care, a more expensive level of care, because uninsured folks typically end up in hospitals when they're in dire need.
But yes, and I want to ask a kind of obvious question here, a rhetorical question, really. And it is, do we need another millionaire in Congress, or do we need a woman who has been a single mom and knows what it is to be in today's economy of inequality? And Julie, I want to again bring out this map of your district running from roughly 200 miles, Fort Worth, down past Austin here. But the great bulk of that district is rural areas. And the pundits and frankly the Democratic consultants say, well, Democrats can't run in those rural areas. Those are Trump people out there. What do you say to that?
You will find some Trump people out there, but the reality is when you talk to people about what is keeping them up at night, and in rural Texas, ensuring that they do have a hospital in their county, and healthcare in their county, ensuring that their children have high quality education, reliable internet access. Many of my towns in my district don't even have internet access, no high speed internet access. The most reliable thing is this cell phone in their hand, and you drive, block down the road, and then it's suddenly gone. No private company is ever going to make the investment in broadband or high-speed internet. They can't ever turn a profit. It'll be years and years and years before they could get an investment back from it. The other thing is farmers and ranchers know that climate change is real. They know it. They've been living with it for years and years. The reality is we can do so much better by our rural friends and neighbors, by the policies, these progressive policies. They are beneficial. If we want thriving rural communities, it's a progressive policies. It's not those corporate policies, those corporate, bought candidates that are going to be advocating for rural Texas. We need farmers and ranchers who can make money farming and ranching and not having to have a family member have a job so that they can, make up the shortfall in their contracts with Big Ag. But it's Democratic policies that are going to be going to bat for them. It's not the corporate Republicans that are. They've left them behind. We've
got listeners all across the country, Julie, who will be saying, well, all that's very nice, but we need to win these offices. And the fact is, you are winning.
Yeah, our polling shows us neck and neck, truly, in a tie with Roger Williams right now.
We can do this.
We could do this. We outraised him for the last 3 reporting cycles, and we did it without taking any PAC money. So it's been really remarkable. It's our average donation is like $43 per person. So it can be done. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And so many people we've talked to is like, I've never even talked to a candidate. Never had one call me. Never had one show up on my porch. And so having conversations with people engenders trust. When you have that trust with somebody, they know that they can rely on you to do the right thing, and they will vote for you. And that's what we're building. That's what's getting built across the state with the work that Mike Siegel is doing, the work that we're doing, the work that others across the country are doing. That's why we have Cori Bush going to Congress. That's why we have Jamal Bowman going to Congress. Bingo. Going up against big Dems who were well-funded Democrats, and they won because they engendered trust with their communities.
There you go. What about trust? I mean, what if we had a government we could trust? Because it was from people like ourselves, like Julie Oliver. Julie, thank you so much.
Well,
And we're putting up your contact information and et cetera, but give it to us one more time out loud from your mouth. How do people find you?
you can find me on my website, julieoliver.org, Facebook, Julie4Texas, Julie FOR Texas. And then I don't know why I didn't make this consistent. On Twitter and Instagram, Julie Oliver TX.
Okay. Way to go. Julie Oliver, thank you so much for being with us. And thanks for what you're doing. This is terrific stuff. And to all of you, thanks for being with us tonight. We got a little tidbit we're going to play out here at the last. It's a little 2 or 3 minute video going back to 2005 or 6 or somewhere back in there about gerrymandering. And this is a little show that was done, a documentary that was made about Tom DeLay, the sleaze, who was the majority leader who redistricted Texas after it was redistricted to create these districts that now Julie Oliver and Mike Siegel are having to run in. So we're just going to lead this out with this little tidbit here. It's only about 2 or 3 minutes that we've got here, but it will give you an idea of how corrupt this system is and what it amounts to. Deanna, can you play it for us?
I am playing it now. All right, 2-3 minutes, and then Hightower, stay on to say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye.
And wait 1 second. Here we go.
Well, DeLay woke up one morning in around 2000, had a great big bowl of Fruit Loops for breakfast, I think, and then said, you know what, I think I'll just redistrict Texas. And the whole idea of redistricting sounds complicated and makes you want to roll your eyes back in your head, but basically it is that a member of Congress should represent the same number of people that every other member of Congress represents.
Thank you.
Since population is good every 10 years, we redraw the lines. And it turns out that there were a number of Democrats in Congress who were getting elected from Republican majority districts. And the people, those scamps, just were not going along the ideological and partisan lines that DeLay felt that they should. So he had this bright idea of let's just redistrict Texas.
What's strange about doing redistricting after the census or the 2001 period and coming back in and doing mid-decade redistricting in 2003 is that the official formal redistricting had already been done. People who had voted for one member of Congress now all of a sudden got their member of Congress changed in midstream by changing the lines. That's what makes it so egregious, because it took away their vote that they had already made in terms of choosing the best candidate to represent their interests.
I'm standing at the corner of Ronson Street and 38th in Austin, Texas. This entire county was its own congressional district. We knew our member of Congress. We could talk to that member of Congress. That member of Congress was from here. But Tom DeLay came into our county and sliced it and diced it, mangled and strangled our democracy, carving all of this up into 3 separate congressional districts. Look at what he's done to it. You take a step over this way, that congressional district goes all the way to San Antonio, 90 miles away where that member of Congress lives. Step over here, that district goes to Houston, where that member of Congress lives, more than 100 miles away. And down this district right here, it goes all the way to the Mexican border, 400 miles away. That's the distance from Washington, D.C. to Boston, or Los Angeles to San Francisco. That's not a community of interest. This telephone pole right here is where Tom DeLay's 3 congressional districts come together, the districts that splinter our city. Now, the good news is a fight was made against that splintering. 52 stalwart Democrats took an extreme measure of going to Oklahoma to break the quorum so DeLay could not proceed.
And you're back.
So that is what next Tuesday, November 3rd, is about little d democracy, having a chance in America again. And that chance means people like Mike Siegel and Julie Oliver and Kriss Marion, who are daring to stand up against the moneyed powers, daring to say no to this kind of corrupt gerrymandering, rigging of the system. That is our future. That is the hope that we have. So whatever happens to Trump Biden next Tuesday, don't worry, because the grassroots is on the move.